Oh, there we are. And we're now connected on YouTube too. What a wonderful way to go ahead and start off. Just this kind of,
That's our habit, though, right?
Of course. Of course. Perhaps.
Welcome to Bots Rush, where we solve all our audio
Yeah, he said
in real time.
Oh, he said we can hear Mark.
Debuggers.
It's a bit better right now. I'll just go ahead and pop that up there too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think Mark is probably better now. Well, hey, y'all.
What's up?
I know I keep saying
Long
it.
time no see.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Oh, pardon me. This is the after hours boss rush, but it's also one that we just said, you know what? Hey, I'm going to be back in the office, and maybe we'll just go ahead and host one anyway, just to kind of, get
Catch up.
Yeah, catch up a little bit. And I'm going to actually bump up Mark's gain a little bit here. So I think you're good now, buddy. So, yeah, I have been away from game news and industry dealings for almost a month. And it was wonderful. To be clear with everybody,
I was away for a month. It was wonderful.
It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And I'll tell you why. Hey, happy Friday, y'all. Yes. Yeah, it is Friday. I have been away because my wife and I celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary this year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. Which was really awesome. We said, hey, you know what? Time to go ahead and do the trip. So, we spent, my goodness, traveling all over Europe for the past 3.5 weeks, which was just extraordinary. It was just an amazing time away, and went to see some places we hadn't been before, and all of that great stuff. And so now I'm back. Thank you, Michael, for the congratulations there, buddy. I appreciate it. So I am back, and I am 7 hours out of sync. So right now it's 7:35 in the evening for me.
You're just gonna nod off here in about an hour.
No, we're good there. But one of the things I committed to doing too, which is the first time I've ever done in my career, is I didn't bring a laptop. I didn't do any work while I was gone, really, and that was something I've, for the longest amount of time, I've never done in my career. I snuck a couple of pieces in there. Like, we have a conference coming up next week in Montreal, the Montreal International Game Summit. I'll be there as leading a panel discussion, and there to meet with customers and meet with industry folks. And, so we're jumping right back into it. But my game access information has just been in downloading a Super Paper Mario the 1,000-Year Door strategy guide, so I could go ahead and play it, on the 10-hour flight from Greece, back home.
And did you enjoy it?
Oh, it is lovely. It is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful game. And it is a little bit different than the original one. Obviously, is making, use of more modern conventions than when the game was first released on the Nintendo 64. Mark's real Nintendo love right there, the N64 era. So Mark, I'm going to be leaning on you today more to talk a bit about, what's been going on in game news. We'll pop up the browser here. If anyone that's listening or joining us today, go ahead and let us, give us any questions or things you want to go ahead and talk about, and we'll go ahead and cover them. But I figured we'll just ease back into it with
chat. And if you start to hear Peach and Bowser too much over here, not the characters but the dogs, let me know, because they're going bananas this morning.
Oh no, that's perfectly fine. I will say too that I like each time that we're doing this now, the workspace you have behind you is continuing to grow and get more stuff put in there. So you're
Hallelujah. Yeah, thank you. It's finally turned it into an office. No, you know what I did while you were gone? Of course, the floor is just covered with Japanese books and Adafruit kits and soldering irons and all the things. At some point, they'll end up in cabinets. Thank you, IKEA.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, very good. So yeah, so your 3D printer named Mark, right behind you.
No, actually, that was a test print from the Cricket.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's a project I was working on that required a Cricket,
Yeah.
a Chibitronics project, and the test print was like, enter your name, and we'll cut this out of vinyl. And I was like, where am I going to stick this? Well, there's a flat surface next to me. I'll stick it on the 3D printer. Great. The 3D printer is downstairs right now in upgrade land. It's going from a Prusa 4 to a Prusa 4S. Anybody who has a 3D printer?
Ooh.
3D printers are awesome. But it's in the middle of an upgrade.
Nice. Yeah, I'm about to get rid of the one that I've got, and I'm looking at the Bamboo Carbon X1.
Yep, heard good things about that one.
Yeah. So we'll see. But and I see you have your Quest 3 behind you.
I do. Yep, and the Mattel ViewMaster VR headset also.
Ah.
Which I thought was amazing when they launched that. It's just a shell.
Yeah.
Out of plastic.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Yeah. That you slid your phone into was just like, oh my God, this is the future.
It's so amazing. It's still the future. Oh well. Yep. But I'm looking forward to trying out the 3S at some point. The Quest 3S. It'll be really interesting to see. I watched the iFixit analysis of it, which showed up probably about a week ago, I think, while you were away.
Right.
And iFixit said there's a lot of shared parts with the Quest 2 in there. So it's like upgraded resolution. They removed a sensor that they were having trouble. People were sweating into the sensor. Maybe you know about this.
Oh no!
Being a Beat Saber player, maybe you know about this sensor that's like right here on the inside. It's like a presence sensor. So when you put the headset on, it knows you put the headset on.
Right.
Apparently, people were sweating into it, and it was shorting out the board. So they just removed it from the 3S. I don't know if there's a solution, or they just pulled it out for cost reduction.
I would imagine a piece of Scotch tape over it would probably suffice as a fix.
Probably.
Yeah, probably. It's good to know that because I just ordered the face plate. It just came, while we were away, so I can take that off and wipe it down because I'm gonna. After eating my way across Europe, I have now dedicated more than ever to getting back into working out, and you need to do that a little bit. You got to enjoy your life too. But oh shit.
Yeah. I know this feeling well. Yeah.
So that's good to good to know. Yeah, the 3S. It was that, and then there was another sensor. Didn't they? Isn't the LiDAR sensor? Didn't they remove that from the 3S or something? It had something to do with collision or mapping rather that was removed from the 3S to bring the cost down.
You're probably right. I mean, I'm not sure for sure, but it seems like if you were going to remove a sensor and you had good faith in your stereoscopic capabilities, you remove LiDAR and then just use like traditional kind of SLAM algorithms to do the 3D.
Yeah.
And it works well enough, right? I mean, I think the LiDAR is better. Like there's LiDAR on the higher end iPads, right? And it's better at mapping, but you can get by for a lot of things without it.
Yeah. Let's see. What did they say were, I think Forbes actually talked about it. We'll go ahead and pop up the browser here. Forbes said, had a listing here. Oh my goodness. If we can get rid of all the advertisements that are popping up around it. My goodness gracious, Snapdragon uses, Fresnel lenses instead of the pancake lenses, right? So if you're used to using the 2, that won't be, a new kind of visual for you, right? Or the way those lenses look. And what was it? Quest 3 has 3.5 million. So the 3S has a little lower resolution display, but for the vast majority of things, you'd never know it. Pixels per degree, a little bit different, narrower field of view, better battery life, but I think there was also another sensor that was gone from there, but yeah. Still cool. It's still an awesome headset,
It is.
Yeah, it's still an awesome headset.
And way cheaper.
Yeah.
$300. I mean, $300. Jeez.
Yeah. That is pretty darn cheap.
Consumer electronics, yeah.
Yeah. And again, as long as I could do Beat Saber, I'm good.
You're
Go
good.
get it. Yes. Yeah. But one of the things I did get, though, was the an upgraded headband that has a fan in the front, so it actually blows down into the eye, so to help keep you cool. And it has a removable battery pack on the back that's magnetic.
Wow.
And it's got like a 10 or 12,000 milliamp battery. So when you're playing, you can literally just snap the one battery off, snap another one on, and just keep playing. So I'm like, yeah. That was, I think it was like $70 for it, but it was really highly rated. So between that and the new sweat faceplate, I should be good to play some
like
kick-ass
imagining
Beat
you,
Sabers.
Like, it's like Napoleon Dynamite with like a fan mounted to your headband.
Lucky, sweet. Oh my goodness! Hey, one of the questions that popped up here was any insights on over VR sales trends? I saw a graph a while ago that VR sales might have been for the Quest were following early iPhone trends.
I'm not sure what that means, but I suspect that that's true, and that there was probably a big bump and then a big fall off. The real question is, what's going to happen with 3S? Because that's the question for me anyway. I think that there are still 3 or 4 headset providers out there that you can point to that are launching things, but the hype and churn around VR has gotten kind of quiet. Even Vision Pro, they're talking about maybe not shipping Vision Pro anymore. So the question for me is just like, are developers going to make games for it? And is that going to drive sales? So what's going to happen this Christmas is a very open question, I think.
Yeah, and with it is interesting. I think with the successor to the Switch being bumped out to next year, and the Switch market kind of plateauing a little bit, people not jumping into. I mean, there'll be plenty of inventory, I think, for the new PS5 refresh. But it kind of gives a little bit of an opening there to jump into VR again, like we saw a couple of years ago, right? Because it'll be the newest thing. And interestingly enough, there's been a bunch of discussions across a couple of news sites here around VR. One of them on GameSpeed here. And of course, I should have mentioned Dean Takahashi is off getting ready for GameSpeed Next, which is going on next week. And Susan is away doing something. So, so that's why it's just me and Mark today instead of the usual crew of 4. But right here on the GameSpeed site, it was the next big trend for VR is multiplayer. This is an article that was done. When was this? On the 23rd, so just a couple of days ago. I haven't read it, but feel free to go ahead and head on over to GamesBeat, which is venturebeat.com/, I think, gaming. Is that right?
I wish we had some better. Yeah, I think that's right.
Or category games.
It frustrates me that we don't have better numbers for VR.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I've harassed folks at Meta about in particular, like, how's a developer supposed to decide if they're going to produce a game for your platform if they can't really accurately predict what their sales might be?
Right.
Because they have, it's just guessing and hearsay between developers. And even digging around right now, I'm trying to find good numbers and having trouble. But, so as a developer, all I do is put my finger up in the wind and see things like Minecraft just announcing they were going to pull VR support out of Minecraft.
Really?
That's not a good sign.
No.
Yeah, that was just this past week. Which makes me sad because it doesn't seem like it should be that much extra support, but maybe it's too much given the number of people who aren't using it.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, it's frustrating because these things take quite. You need kind of that momentum of force of a developer community, and everything behind it to make this stuff work longer term, right? One of the other things I'm sure we'll talk about is Netflix shutting down their AAA studio, right? After just 2 years. But AAA games don't take 2 years. AAA games take, a huge amount of time. And since Mike had left the position running studios, it seems that their strategy has pivoted a little bit, right? So I'm sure we'll talk about that. But interestingly enough, on gamesindustry.biz, which I have the site up here for people that are following along at home, one of the opinion pieces were games may not be the killer app for VR. And as Meta and Apple focus on work applications for their VR tech, the best hope for VR games is to evolve as PC gaming did, a fun thing to do in a work-focused device. So I read the headline of this and read a little bit of the article, and it just made me click right back to the early 1980s, right? Because in the 1980s, when the game industry collapsed, which it really didn't collapse, it was the console space collapsed because of the glut of content that was in the market. But what was on the rise at the time were home computers. And that was the way kids got computers into the home, was by telling their parents, hey, I can use this for school and I'm going to be learning. It's like, oh yeah, this is a good thing. Oh, and they can also play on it too. Right? So maybe, you know, with the friction that we've seen around VR, is having some of those more life-oriented applications that really make good use of current, lower cost, more accessible VR technology. And as people adopt that, then they find their way into the fun side of it. You got to go the games route first, because that's where the early adopters, they're willing to spend the money to seed the market. But if you're going to get to mass market, it has to be something accessible to, well, the mass market. And, you know, the, what is it? The Arizona Rising, is that the name of the zombie killer game? Or even Beat Saber may not be as, you know, approachable by a mass market. Like, what's going to be the equivalent, you know, Candy Crush type of game that gets people to just adopt?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you're thinking along similar lines to what Meta's been thinking lately, because they just wrapped up the first phase of a lifestyle grants program that the first proposals were due October 15th. So they're trying to incentivize developers to produce things that are not necessarily games, but things around other things you do in your life, you know, teaching you about cooking or hiking or driving, or what do normal people do? I forget.
Right.
Playing with your dogs. I don't know. But there was this lifestyle grant program, so it was open for a couple of months, and I kept eyeballing it. But they were pretty clear that they were not intending for it to necessarily be games. They were also not intending it to be for formal learning or for like K-12 education.
Right.
That was different. So that's interesting. So I think they might be thinking the same thing. It is an open question for me that, you know, what drives people to buy new technology generally in our space has been games and porn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and not necessarily in that action, and in that order. And it's not just in our space; it's in technology.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the very early days, you know, working at companies like Sun Microsystems, and you'd go into, you know, data centers, or walk a customer into a data center, and you're like, yeah, all of those machines on that half of the room that this provider has, just ignore those. Like, here's what, you know, the military's using for it. It's like, it's vices, right? It isn't even just that content. It's vices, right? And I shouldn't even say vices. It's, you know, the things that humans are attracted to. And
the things you do in your spare time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've wondered, one of the things that I found really interesting when I did a deep dive into VR earlier this year was the extent to which people had really dived in on fitness apps, and also there were a lot of language learning apps, which I thought was a wise move. If you're trying to go after learning, but in a light way, like Duolingo is clearly a company that's had some success, and if you could emulate some of that and do it in VR, it seems like a wise play. And so looking through, there were zillions of language learning apps, some of them great, some of them not so great, some of them that tied into other apps, you know, they might already be using. So that was kind of clever. They used it as an extension.
Right.
Yeah, it's just interesting to watch. You know,
yeah.
TBD. I'm a big fan of VR, so, but I don't get in there very much these days. There is this definite feeling of like, oh, I got to put the headset on. I better, you know, clear a space and my calendar and in my room in order to see things, which I don't feel about jumping onto Steam.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. So one last thing before you move on to. So last night, while taking out the new faceplate, I accidentally turned the headset on, and so I put it on. I was like, okay, this is all comfortable. And then what I loved is the new pass-through cameras on the 3 are really, really good. And what felt so good was reaching out with my hand, grabbing a window, and just dropping it in space, and it's, you know, it's the solidity of of that XR type experience that the HoloLens really tried to reach for, but just couldn't do, right? I always said the HoloLens was like the greatest science fair project. It did all this crazy stuff, but the Quest 3, that is really the closest, even more so, I think, than the Vision Pro. Just accessible, frictionless, and really cool. Like it's there. It's locked in space, and I think that's pretty cool. Anyway.
Yeah. Did you see you mentioned HoloLens? It reminded me of another piece of news. There was an article about Microsoft headsets. So it sounds like maybe an offshoot of this HoloLens technology has been a headset designed for the military.
Yeah.
But the price point that Microsoft is charging them per headset is kind of insane. And so this article was basically like, hey, Microsoft, it was about, hey, Microsoft, we're not going to adopt this technology if you don't make it cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, I get that. But there's probably a lot more to it than that. When you're talking about
always
military industrialized stuff, it's security, it's additional performance, it's redundancy systems, it's like all these other things. So it's not your consumer, cobbled together thing, but
it's also all customized, right? So it's not like you're going to take one. You want to try to, as a company, you want to try to figure out how to repurpose some of that tech, and that's always been the case. But some of it just doesn't make sense, and so you're making it custom for one particular customer, and that's expensive.
And you don't get the economies of scale for massive numbers, so you can't bring those numbers down. You're right; it's almost like a one-off of X thousands of units, right? Versus potentially hundreds of thousands or a million units. So. Well, best of luck to that team, because the team that worked on original HoloLens, and Holly Herzl was one of the people in that team who was just awesome. Really good ideas. Just the vision exceeded where the technology was at the time, right? So anyway, all right. That's some VR stuff, and then of course we're gonna have to get together this weekend and play a little mini golf if you're around. So we should definitely do that.
Should absolutely do that.
All right, so now Mark, I want to go ahead. I know I said I was going to ask you to lead, but now I'm going to continue leading with my big old mouth.
Let's have a chat.
Let's talk about Netflix games.
Closing the studio.
Yeah. So did you have a chance to take a look at the, kind of the information around that?
I did, yeah. I mean, the question for me, so that it's actually the description of them closing the only AAA game studio I thought was interesting, because I guess I never really thought about the way that their studios are organized as being AAA versus indie versus AA versus whatever. Maybe this was just a bigger expense. They were trying to make a bigger play, but I found myself wondering who I knew on this team, because it sounded really familiar. I was like, this Team Blue, I think I've seen them advertising for new hires there. So it was odd to see it closed out.
Yeah. Yeah, in the article on the GameSpeed site, GamesFile reported the closure, saying that Team Blue was working on a big-budget multi-device strategy at the time. To staff at the studio, Netflix hired several recognizable names from major game companies, including Overwatch's executive producer, former creative lead on Halo, former Sony Santa Monica executives.
Checo.
Yeah, all who left the company with the closure of the LA studio. It is interesting. Now, of course, mutual friend Dave Edry and Spry Fox, right? They were acquired by them.
Yep.
So, hooray to Dave to doing that. But yeah, it is interesting. Just after 2 years, right? It's just been this kind of pivot in the in the company, especially as we said, Mike Verdu had moved on from spearheading games to a new role in the company.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if this is really the story here, because Alain Tascan, who was at Epic, is now president of Netflix Games. Probably, I mean, I think he came in July, August. So probably he's had enough time now to look at the numbers and how well things are doing, and was just like this giant team doesn't make sense given how our platform is going, at least not right now. That'd be my guess.
Or maybe given where they think they want to be, right? I think, to Netflix's credit, they've been doing an admirable job of bringing really good content to that form factor. There could still be this friction of, well, I didn't know Netflix had games. right?
I know.
There's a little bit of that, but that only
Yep.
happens over time, over cadence, right? Over constantly pushing it or doing something wholly unique, right?
Yep.
So I was hoping that eventually we see shoulder content that is interactive or is game based around their principal properties, because we know people have
Right.
their phones in their hands while they're watching this. So instead of getting them, on Instagram or something, give them stuff to do related to the content that they're watching, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's called Squid Game. Like maybe we should have a Squid Game.
Oh, look at
Where's
that.
the Squid Game game?
Yeah,
I'm
okay,
sure,
yeah. All
I'm
right.
sure they're working on something. They must
Oh, could
be.
you imagine like a 1 versus 100 style of game that's playing out during Squid Games or something like that? That would be okay. Everybody that's watching right now,
That was an Xbox game, right? Which platform was that on? The 1 versus 100. That was
it
amazing. I
was it
remember
was 360, Xbox 360.
360.
Yeah.
I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, there's actually 100 people on here at once. That's amazing. So awesome.
But it also reminds me of that. Remember that trivia game, that live show trivia game that was on mobile phones, and you went ahead and jumped in and watched like every day at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Wow, that flared out pretty fast, didn't it?
It did. It did, because you know what it was, we had this conversation with some colleagues before. It was about the personality. So if you've ever played Jellyvision games, like You Don't Know Jack, the announcer Cookie
Yep.
was amazing. The writing was awesome. Delivery was perfect. And they had tried switching out to, I think it was like, this is Cookie's cousin, a different voice. No, like nobody wanted it. And so they did the same thing with that platform when they said, oh, we're going to have, guest host come in, and people were not playing. Like, no, give me the host. It was all personality driven. So don't make the mistake that, it's the brilliance of your game idea. It's not just that, right? It's the other pieces that go into it.
It's all, also the personality. Sorry, you're totally reminding me. I had to go look something up really fast. You mentioned Cookie. That his voice is stuck in my head. I think it's the same guy who does Is It Cake? I think it's the same person. His voice. Like, you should watch Is It Cake if you haven't watched Is It Cake.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know, it's like there's an object that they bring out. It looks like, here's a little, a laptop. Is it cake or not? And then they try to cut a real laptop. They try to cut that one, and you have to figure which one. Right. Or they did one where it was like a chair was brought out, and they're like, which chair, is it cake?
Yeah. And it's a cooking show, ostensibly. And so there's contestants who are trying to make these objects out of cake. And then celebrities come on and have to guess which ones are real, which ones aren't. But I swear that's the same guy. His voice is just like, it's got to be.
Yeah, perhaps. Anyway, so, we wish the best for those that are affected by the closure of that AAA studio, and for Netflix for, staying in the game. I think it's important for companies like Netflix that continue to bring games in the fold to continue to try, right, to continue to build those things out. So, I'm cheering for both, right? The group that it was affected find soft landings and quickly and continue to stay in games, and for Netflix to, kind of settle on a strategy that continues them innovating and building and getting more content out there. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Mark, that's all I've got in my brain right now, because again, I'm still on like this 7-hour swing here. What other big pieces of news have popped up in the past week or two that we need to talk about?
What other big parts? That's a good question. Here, I'm just gonna. Oh, Epic launched the Fab Marketplace, of course, which is awesome. So yeah, this has been in the works for a while, right? It's the asset store for Unreal, and it's based around Sketchfab, and it has a bunch of that Quixel. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's like random words coming at you, weird acronyms.
Oh well, let's assume, Mark, that I don't know anything about it. Of course I do, but why don't you explain?
Well, yeah, it's just having a marketplace where you can go as an Unreal user to find 3D assets, to use in your games. So Fab is the relaunch of what was the Sketchfab store that Epic acquired a while back.
Right.
Quixel is a bunch of high res art assets that you could use. The Quixel textures and things I use quite a bit. Anyway, Fab launched this past week. I haven't checked it out yet, but I'm assuming it's going to be super easy to use. I know if you had a login on there previously, that apparently you can download all of the old Quixel content for free.
Wow.
Which I got excited about and went over and clicked on the little thing to get that. But then, of course, I didn't do anything with it. But, someday in the future, maybe I
will. Yeah, I've got the website up here right now. It looks awesome. And it's also following the same format as their Epic Store UI, which is really good, right?
Perfect.
Yeah. Yep. So it makes it familiar for people. And look, there's always this, and so I think it's awesome, number one, that they have this. But there's always that, this game was created with these downloaded texture packs and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, but they're created by real artists, and then they typically get that modified. But I think this stuff is so important. By the way, I'm just completely got shortcut here because it says free content. Grab the latest October free content while you can. So I wonder if they're going to follow the same path that they did for Epic Games Store, where every month you're going to be able to get free content. That would be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. See, helping developers get access to those assets so they can make prototypes and they can do proof of concepts and that kind of stuff, which, for those of you listening that wouldn't know, but when Mark and I were working together on a project, 5 years ago now, I know. One of the things that, that was so helpful to me was to be able to download these full levels and things like that and be able to use them as proof of concept for technology evaluation for this project. And yeah, had I not had access to that, it would have been just, unskinned meshes or, primitives just sitting there. It's like, imagine this one giant block is a medieval village. Okay.
That's what most of my pieces of software look like, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Just cubes and spheres and
yeah. Right. So really, really cool. Oh, one of the environments is a Parisian street. Which nice. We just went to Paris, so that'll be fun to go and
check it out and see if it's
see if it's actually accurate and go, no, that wasn't there.
Gosh, I'm just spacing. I'm like running down a rabbit hole here. Talking about free 3D assets. There is a guy I follow on Twitter who posts up free packs of Unity assets, like nonstop, all the time. Ooh. I get updates like, "Oh, you should come and download this," and he's on itch, so you can subscribe to it and get it. I'm just trying to remember the guy's name.
Yeah, if you can do that, go ahead and pop it into the chat on either our YouTube feed or the LinkedIn feed. That would be awesome.
Somebody on here's got to know who I'm talking about. I can't believe I forgot.
Yeah, and if somebody does, go ahead and just slap that into the chat for us. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be great.
When I find it, I'll mention it.
Awesome. All right. Very, very cool. Let's see. What other big news pieces have popped up here? Q3 game M&A strengthens for the fourth straight quarter. Gaming merger and acquisition deal activity increased for the fourth straight quarter during the September period, with $2.5 billion in disclosed deal value and over $1 billion raised in private financings, which is good, right? We're starting to feel a bit of the climb out of the reduction, right, that we saw at the end of COVID that kind of extended really over the past 2 years. So it's good to do that. It's funny. Somebody said, "Does anyone still watch YouTube?" That was from Oren Vended. So yeah, Oren, YouTube is probably the most watched streaming service for me. I watch a ton of content every day on it. So
Jason nailed it. Jason's like, "Is it Kenny?" Yes, Jason, it's Kenny. Jason was asking about the.
Hey.
So, yeah, Kenny's 3D.
Thank you.
Can't believe I forgot. Sheesh.
Thank you, Jason.
Embarrassed.
Yep, and he already posted it in there. Oh yeah, I have. Oh my goodness. Now that you posted it there, I know exactly what this, because I have a whole bunch of stuff.
Right?
Yeah, that's what I need a personal LLM for, is to just keep track of all the things I've already bought and asset packs that I have, and right, that's what I need.
Right? Yeah, I should have been able to quickly find those, you would think.
Yeah. Ooh, there's one here called the Mini Arcade. Of course, anything that says arcade on it.
Pico 8 stuff here on.
That's exactly where I found them, because when I started doing some Pico 8 development, I'm like, man, I could really use some placeholder art. And it was like, oh, well, here's all of the art.
Right. Super handy, right?
Yep. Yeah. Oren said, has anyone heard of TikTok? Sure. 15-second clips are great. But when you actually want to sit down for 15 minutes and watch somebody do an actual real dissection that has real value, then yeah,
wow,
that's what I do.
You. I'm probably on TikTok as much as, well, maybe a little less than I'm on YouTube.
Exactly. Doom scrolling through TikTok.
No, I watch Japanese videos on TikTok. It's great.
Yeah,
it's good practice. You know, if you're learning a language, you can go on TikTok and there's
you're using
there speaking it.
Using it for a very specific thing. I agree. It's wonderful. But if you want to watch stuff on retro gaming, which in gaming history, yes, go ahead and watch. Oh, they have minutes now. Fantastic. But if you want to go ahead and watch a wonderful dissection on retro games and stuff, go watch GameSack on YouTube, or go watch Retro Recipes, or go watch Deconstructions. Stuff. No, but in all seriousness, you're exactly right. It's both, right? It's not one or the other. It's just one of many that I want to consume.
One of many.
That's exactly right.
I have a piece of news that hasn't been news out there. I don't think they've done a press release, but it's public, so I feel like I can talk about it.
Yes.
Which is so Games for Change next week. Yep, next week, Tuesday, is doing a day of the games industry meets the UN. So at the UN, it's called the Games and SDG Summit. So they're bringing in games industry folks. They're bringing in UN folks. So, Playing for the Planet people, UNESCO, World Food Program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to meet up and talk about some of the sustainable development goals and find ways for games to forward sustainable development goals, which is pretty amazing. So they did a half day like this 2 Games for Changes ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was the day before Games for Change. It was amazing. I met a bunch of UN folks there who were interested and wanted to talk about things that they could explore, things they might be able to try. And so this is a follow-up, and it's a day long next Tuesday. You can find it at summit.gamesforchange.org. I think it's unfortunately you can't just freely register for it, but I'll be really curious to hear about how it goes. I am not going because I have a relative who is having surgery on that day, so I am staying here in Seattle. But I'll be curious to hear how it all goes.
Yeah, no, that will be extraordinary. Well, first, our best wishes, of course, for a family relative that's going through that. So we'll be sending all the best vibes for you and them. And then, that would be very interesting to hear. And I love that we're finding new ways of providing interactive frameworks and approachable content or experiences around very big problems. For people to be able to, engage with, because that's what games do extraordinarily well, right?
Yep. I think, and that's the goal, is to try to find, how do we use such an engaging art form to move forward things that are difficult. And I love to see that not only are UN agencies interested, World Food Program, UNICEF, UNESCO are listed here, but that there are nonprofits out there that are also jumping into the fight and trying to help out. So you see listed here, Chopra Foundation, Gina Davis Institute, 8 Goals, 1 Foundation. I think there are some others involved probably later on the page. But what a great group of people. Anyway, stay tuned for more news on that. I'm sure interesting things are going to come of it. And hopefully we'll talk about some of them at Games for Change next year, or even GDC.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Speaking of GDC, my goodness, we are approaching the end of the year right now. I know that sessions are all locked already, I think, and going through all of that stuff right now. So, it's coming fast, like a train without brakes. It'll be here.
Book your hotel.
yeah, exactly.
I need to do that.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Finding hotels.
Yeah,
crazy. Okay, what about? Let's see. Of course, we need to probably talk about the current stuff going on in AI and game development, right? Have there been any big announcements or things like that you've heard about AI tools or things of that nature?
There's always just so much. I feel like in the month that you've been gone, video generation from text prompts or from images has just gone nuts.
Yeah.
There's so many video clips I'm stumbling across on YouTube, people cutting things together that are really interesting that are starting to look pretty good. I'm just surprised. It's probably been about a month now since this bump, and it's a few different tools that have gotten better
Yeah,
suddenly.
Minimax is the big one that's
Minimax, Kling.ai, Kling, I see a lot.
Yeah.
And people using Sumo for the audio.
Yeah.
Sumo?
No,
that's not right.
Sumo is the
not Sumo.
Let's
Sumo
see who's going to do it. Who's going to find it first? It's Suno. Suno. Oh, look at that.
Woo. Okay.
Faster than you.
Lots of really good stuff. What other awesome things? There were a couple of smaller models released this past week. I was keeping an eye on because people are interested in running smaller models locally. That's really interesting. I mean, it's just like ongoing, right? So much stuff happening in AI. As always, I feel like I could talk about it for 10 hours, but
yes,
I won't. If you're following AI, you probably know.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it for hours, but we do need to, I brought it up because I've been involved in some discussions, right, about this stuff on LinkedIn. And what I find, so I am not against AI, using AI tools at all. Okay, let me get that. No, I'm not. I'm not. What concerns me is when we overstate its capabilities, and you get all this kind of groundswell behind it, going, "Oh yeah, and it's like, no, like you're not answering the questions about how you get there. And somebody had said, oh, look at this right now. 1 to 2 years, 3 years max, full movie. You're going to be able to type in what you want, and it's going to blurt out full series. And no, it's not. No, it's not. And in the conversation, I brought up, some comments about, well, explain how we get from there to there when the progression looks like this. And the response was, well, I'm not really, a technical pragmatist. I'm really more of a potential dreamer. It's like, well, it's okay to dream all you like. But the reality is, if you're making these statements as a leader, and people are going to follow that, you have to be able to explain how we're going to get there. And what it feels like to me right now, the progression of AI tools has just been extraordinary. But I feel like we're now up against the 30% problem, right? We got to 70% of all this capability right now. We got 30% of the way to go to match human output. The problem is that 30% is going to require 70% more effort than we've
I've never heard anybody call this 7. I've always heard people call this 90-10.
They do 90-10, 80-20. I'm calling it 7.
I don't know.
I'm calling it 70-30 because number one, then it's my thought, not anybody else's. And then I'm just kidding. But I'm also
giving more room for growth.
I'm giving a little more credit to what's happened there, because it's all moving so fast. But the problem is whether you call it the 90-10, 80-20, 70-30 rule, the reality is that we still have a long way to go from I think from a quality perspective, from a usability perspective, from a replication perspective, from an integration perspective, than we think. Like being able to blurt out a 30-second clip that shows, like you saw the Street Fighter one, right? Oh yeah. Yes, look, and the models are morphing every sometimes they have 4 arms, and they're like, yeah, but look how fast it's like, yes, but if somebody produced a game that looked like that, you would ask for your money back, like, right? So,
exactly.
So, right, and so like there was another one. It was, can you tell the difference between somebody who did the composition of this or the composition of this using traditional tools or AI, and it's like, well, the person walking in that scene has no reflection in any of the mirrors they're walking by. Oh, well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's not the story that I had, right? Or it's not doing color reflections. Like we still don't do lighting well, right? We still don't. Teeth are a problem. Eyeballs are a problem, right?
Hands are still a problem.
Right. And then it's like, Bill, look at the fluidity of this. It's like, now do some inverse kinematics when somebody has to go ahead and disrupt an animation loop. And now you have to bridge from that and create the resulting, that you can't do any of these things. So yeah, for these proof of concepts, fantastic. For storyboarding, for getting rid of undifferentiated problems from an artist, fantastic use of AI. The notion that, and this is the other piece of it, and then I'll get off my damn soapbox. The notion that somebody is going to eventually go to a service and go, I want a 10-part mystery series, and this is the narrative arc, and people don't do that. Like, there's right, there is a 90-10 rule, right? 10% of social media happens, or 90% of social media happens by 10% of the people. Everybody else consumes, because guess what? If you were all good writers, right, then we'd be. This is what you'd be doing professionally. Like, people don't know what they want. There's no room for that inspiration, and if it's constant if it's constant content that is specific to you, how do you find community around it, right? How do you find the apprehension piece of that, right? That comes with content. So it just feels, people like, wouldn't that be wonderful? You could just type in, it would make anything you want. No, because people don't know what they want until they're shown what they want, typically. All right, so that's it. Now I'm off my soapbox.
There are all sorts of interesting side effects, I think. One of the things that I've started to see happen is people who are using AI for generation, and mostly generation of text with generation of images.
Right.
Once they get to a point where they feel like they can use it and create things that they want, they run out of ideas. They're just like create, because now they're creating at a speed they didn't have before. So everything is like a one-off throwaway.
Right.
And then they reach a point where they're like, I don't know what to do anymore.
Right. Right. Because guess what? Being creative like that is hard. There's a reason why it takes years to write some books, right? And stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I also think it's a bit of that fortune teller effect too, right? Which is, if you go to a fortune teller with $20 in your hand and you're paying them, you're already primed to accept what they're going to tell you, right? Subconsciously you are. So it's like, this is what I want. And it spits out and you go, oh, that's exactly what I want. It's like, no, it's not. Because did you really think about the placement of all those signs in the background? All these other elements that are like, is that really what you thought? No, it's you don't have the clarity of all of that. But when it's presented, you go, oh, well, that is what I want, right? So you're primed for that. And yeah, I agree with you. Then you start running out of ideas.
I do. One of the things that I do really appreciate is the random behavior, the like slot machine aspect of some of this. So if I'm not dependent on using AI solely to generate a thing, but I'm using it as a tool, then I find it super valuable, because I'll ask it to generate an image, and something will show up that I didn't expect. Then maybe I'm going to incorporate that into what I want to do. Same with writing text, right? If I was going to write a story and it's generating some material, maybe it's gonna throw things in there that I hadn't thought of, and I can work that into. So it's a brainstorming partner.
Yes, I agree. 100%.
So there are definitely tools. There's so many things that AI is good at.
Yes,
but you got to feed the VC monster, right? And up and to the right means it's going to keep going up and to the right. You got, you got to invest in my company.
I know. And so that's why I say, one of the companies that I think is built a really awesome tool set is a company called Crikey.ai. Really, really cool. It's two sisters that founded the company, both brilliant. And one of the things that they do is basically model rigging underneath, which is, okay, so you do the model rigging, as we know, is a really difficult thing to do. When you have, right. Yeah. And so it basically says, oh, well, based on this video of a dancer dancing, here's the raw rigging for that. Now you have an animator come in and is able to tune that rigging. Like, that is an awesome tool. And they also have a web-based editor, so you can have multiple designers working on the stuff together. Awesome stuff. It doesn't replace artistry. It removes the undifferentiated pieces of crap that people that they wish they could go ahead and get rid of, so they can get to the art of the animation, right? The soul of the character, right in there. So definitely check them out. It's spelled Crikey with a K.
It's a great name.
Yeah, and it's crikey.a. In fact, let me go ahead and pop that up here. Yeah, so it's really, really cool. And so there's a video here, like showing video to animation, rigging, right?
The rigging.
Yeah, which is really, really amazing. Crikey character AI motion capture minutes using generative AI in your online browser. And it could do, little memes and things like that. And they also have some modules for like doing voiceovers. So it'll, morph the mesh to go ahead and match all of that stuff, or use a translation LLM to go ahead and translate into a different language, which I think is fine for localization and things like that. When we see those tools that like, oh, here's a reporter, and now that reporter or that presenter is now going to speak in perfect Portuguese, and then they go to a conference and they're like, well, you can't really speak Portuguese. What?
Oops.
How do I know what to believe? Anyway, yes, AI tools to help artists, not to replace them. 100%. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So that was my sticky widget in the back of my brain that finally got unstuck, and I was able to.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. A couple of other big ones too. Unity 6 launched on October 17th. I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at that.
I downloaded it.
Oh. Have you?
A good start.
Have you opened it?
No, but it's right there. I should click on it probably.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Let's see. What other big ones did they have in here? LiveAware Labs raises $4.8 million for its AI-powered gamer feedback platform. Nice. These are stories all on VentureBeat or GamesBeat, so you can go ahead and check that out. Oh, there's no. I got a big one for you, but go. Give me another one.
Well, I like this one. So I don't know how to pronounce his name. Fauzi Mesmar, who won the Ambassador Award at GDC last year.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Joined the Beyond Good and Evil 2 team as creative director. So there's two bits of news there. The Beyond Good and Evil 2 team still exists. and he's going to be amazing on it.
Yes. Oh, my. How long have we been waiting for a sequel?
10 years? 12 years?
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
know,
longer. That was a PS2 era game.
Like 10 years since they announced the sequel. I think.
But again, that was a PS2 era game.
Yeah.
So are we close to 20 years now?
Oh yeah. Well, maybe this is perfect. He might have played it when he was a kid. He's gonna.
Okay, what the hell is your problem, man?
He grew up with it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
What's your news?
My big one. Oh, and I cannot wait for this. Kickstarter, a new Kickstarter program. Oh yeah. Not program, but product. Yep. I'm going to pop up here in the browser. Electronic Gaming Monthly Compendium smashes Kickstarter goal on day one. EJ Media announced today that it's launching a new Kickstarter for the product called the Electronic Gaming Monthly Compendium. Has name applies. It's a compilation of stories from the magazine Electronic Gaming Monthly gathered into a book that spans the publication's 25-year history. Oof. It launched on October 15th. And within a few hours surpassed its primary goal of 60,000 with over 800 backers at the time of this writing. It's a physical book that contains interviews, historical background, and features from EGM's many years in print. It also features stories about the magazine itself. It also funds the EGM Digital Archive, which will be, according to its creators, ideally contain fully readable versions of every EGM ever printed. Cool. So yes, I loved that magazine, and I loved the fact that I've got I have quite a few issues, and some of them are going to be going to our good friend Alan, who is opening up an arcade here in the Northern Virginia area in early 2025, and we're going to be adorning that space with a whole bunch of stuff. So I cannot wait for that for Alan to get that up there. But I remember, some of the issues being 400 pages thick. and
my God.
literally with like 250 of those pages being ads. And it was great because it was really a snapshot in time, right? And that was so much a part of the magazine. Oh, in fact, yeah, here we go. Here's one of them right here. This one is December 1993. And yeah,
pick a random page.
All right. Well, the page here, it goes up to page 386 pages in this this magazine. And let's pick, here we go, a random page. I know green screen is going to kick it out. There's Claymates on the Super Super Nintendo. The Seventh Saga, Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, wow.
Right, these layouts were just insane. Eternal Champions, Power League, played the greatest adventure of all time, Jurassic Park.
Wow.
Apparently, it's the greatest adventure of all time. I don't know if you knew that.
Just based it off of Turok.
Oh, here you go. Next wave, Out of This World for the 3DO. Yeah. All right, let's see what the #1 game was. Maybe we need to do this like I'll pick a magazine at random, and we'll just go ahead and see what the #1 game was of that particular day. All right, the review crew. Oh my God, look at those ads.
I just have to guess what platform it's for. You said this is 1993, 1992?
Yeah, 1993. So I think the game of the month. Let's see. What is the game of the month? I don't think they have it by. Wow, man. They reviewed Mad Dog McCree on the 3DO in this in this issue. Oh, there's a Boogerman one. Okay. Yeah, so the highest rated one was Arrow the Acrobat. What platform was it?
I've never even heard of that game.
Oh, no, Arrow the Acrobat. That was a good game. Yeah. And it was on the Super Nintendo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Oh, and right next to it, Super Empire Strikes Back by JVC. Nice. Oh, the music in those games, that whole series, Star Wars games on the 3DO was extraordinary. Oh, there's Dragon's Lair for the Sega CD. Oh my God.
I just came across a Dragon's Lair arcade machine the other day. I was like, oh my God.
I know.
Hey, are you doing your 3 o'clock today?
I will not be doing a 3 o'clock. Oh my goodness, hold on. Here is Adventure Vision Gaming. Is it a video? No, it is a VHS cassette that came with the board game Dragon Strike. And that is what drove the game. So freaking awesome. And here's your pricing guide for your, send us your old cartridges.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. If you have Pro Quarterback laying around, you could get $20 for it.
All right. It's probably worth $200 now.
Oh my goodness. So go ahead and check out the EGM, the Electronic Gaming Monthly Compendium Kickstarter. I'm joining that one. I also backed the Space Invaders smartwatch Kickstarter. Nice. And so it plays Space Invaders right on it and all these different variants and stuff like that. And of course, I'm going to want to see if it's going to be a platform to create other games or, how you modify it. So we'll see.
All right. I have a request. So as we're wrapping up, I don't have a game that I'm playing right now for no good reason.
Right.
But I have a request, which is that if you have seen, anybody watching this, has seen a game that has anything to do with the U.S. political election, let me know, especially if it's good. Besides the Ubisoft one, which they do every 4 years, which is great. Because the reason I ask is that I try to track these things every time there's the U.S. presidential election, and It's been startling how few there have been this year compared to even 20 years ago. It's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, I will definitely keep an eye out for them too, or even go look some of them up and get them over to you. We're a few days away here, folks. Right? So for whatever you're going to, whatever you're going to get out and vote, make sure you get out and vote if you're here in the U.S., right? Yep.
But it's it'll be an interesting one for sure. It'll be regardless of what happens, it will be one for the books.
There'll be a lot of drinking that day. So
yes, yeah.
Invest in some alcohol stocks, probably. Whichever way it goes.
Exactly. Whichever way it goes, you're exactly right. As for today's rewind, no, there will not be one today. I've had them stacked up for over the past few weeks while I've been gone. I went and recorded a bunch of them, but I couldn't get the fifth one in to cover for me today because again, I'm exhausted right now. It's 8:30 at night for me, and and I'm starting to drag a little bit, but we'll be back the following week. I'm also going to be at the MIGS, as I mentioned, the MIGS conference, the Montreal International Game Summit next week. And friend of ours, like a couple of friends of ours, are going to be up there. So I'm looking forward to seeing those folks. And
great. And GamesBeat is happening next week as well.
GamesBeat next is happening.
Going to that.
Yep, which is really huge. And then then we roll right into November. We have a short 2 months before the end of the year, which is crazy. I'll be in Vegas the first week in December for reInvent, AWS's reInvent conference. Going to be talking about the Open 3D engine and robotics in a talk that I'm going to be a part of. And which, by the way, if you haven't checked it out lately, huge improvements on this incredible open source engine that we developed here and then released through the Linux Foundation. So I think it's open3d.org, I think is the URL. If you want to go check it out, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And games I'm playing, I told you, Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door, really, really, really good. Oh my gosh, the storytelling in it's great. All the little things that you can find are just awesome, and it's just makes you happy when you play it. Just makes you smile. So yeah, I'm loving that right now. But that's about it, man. That's about it.
Good.
So yeah,
nice to have you back.
Hey, thank you, man. It's nice to be back, and thanks for those that joined us today. I know it was a late. I think I sent it out like an hour before we decided to go live today. But it's like, hey, I'm back. Let's at least start the conversation and get me re-familiar with my mixing board here.
Yeah, no audio glitches that I'm aware of.
No audio glitches. That's right.
Oh my God, I heard another podcast use that same audio clip yesterday, and I just laughed.
Which one? The kids cheering? Oh
one.
Yeah, those are the standards.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Friday morning on the West Coast, afternoon on the East Coast. Again, my name is Chris Melisinos here with Mark Delore, and we'll be back next week with another Boss Rush. So, go play go play more games. Let us know what we should be talking about, and have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Have a good weekend.
All right, gang.